Welcome to this latest edition of the podcast on this 24th of March 2020. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald-Quinn, discussing the world of sports and pop culture. As always, we are streaming live here on my YouTube channel. The podcast should be up anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes the uh, after the broadcast is done, podcast is over. We will also be on, of course, featured on iTunes, as well as Stitcher, Spotify, and also Blog Talk Radio. A lot going on, to say the least, in the world of sports. But there was a relatively busy sports day, considering that there are no actual sports live games in terms of the four major sports. Number of announcements that you had today. Number one, the IOC is going to postpone the Olympics. I don't think that's anybody surprised by that. It's absolutely till 2021. So if it's a good news, bad news type thing. The bad news, those you got a lot of athletes who waited their entire lives to get to this point. Um, with the Olympics being every 4 years. But the good news is at least it will be another. At least they'll be back next year. There was fear that you know maybe they would have to wait even longer if it was outright just canceled and mess around and when and athletes wouldn't have to wait until 2024. So that at least 1 year. Again, 1 year is a lot in a if this is your last Olympics. It's one thing if you're 18 years old, you're 21, you're 22. If you are, in your late 20s, some of these, depending on the sport, your late 20s, early 30s, it could be like a year is still a long time. But I would have to think that the fact that I would have to think that much rather have it this way than to be a longer postponement or even 2024. So and you knew that was going to happen. It's no surprise with that. You also saw Tiger Valoa throwing in an Instagram video for the ex-Alabama quarterback. It was about the video was about 15 to 20 seconds. He's expected to be a top five pick. I would take him number one if I were the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not a Joe Burrow guy. Um, I think Joe Burrow came along just too fast. Too fast. I got to see at least 2 years of Tua, and if Tua is healthy, he gets a clean bill of health. I would take him with the number one pick. And I actually think he's worth the risk. I actually think he's worth the risk. There are going to be a number of teams. He is to me. He's ahead of schedule in terms of his recovery. Um, and again, I know it's only a 15 to 20-second video, but he was moving well. There's always going to be questions about his health until he goes out there and stays healthy for a couple of years. But as far as who is the better prospect, as far as ability, I don't think there's any question that it's Tua. If I had the number one pick, I would take Tua. So you saw that. You also had the Philadelphia 76ers making complete jackasses of themselves by initially proposing to cut their salary employers who were making over $50,000 or more by 20%. And they tried to spin it by saying that this was going to enable them to pay their hourly employees in full. So after basically getting destroyed on social media and consulting with some players and some people within that organization, they uh, changed course, reversed course, and uh, decide to go not cut their salaries of their employers, cut the salaries of their salary employees, and you see stuff like this, and considering what's going on, the thing I'll say two things about this. Number one, billionaires should not panic. and the owners of that team are either billionaires or close to being billionaires. If you're an owner of a franchise of multiple franchises, they own the Net, they own the Devils as well as the Sixers. You shouldn't be anywhere near panicking. Like this pandemic, uh, rich people, wealthy people are going to be fine. Okay, it is the lower middle class to people who are below poverty or living from check to check that are going to pay the price. So there's zero reason for this to even be a thought in the owners' heads. Zero reason. And this is how you lose quality employees. This is how you lose quality employees by doing dumb shit like this. By even thinking about doing dumb shit about like this. If I worked for the Sixers right now, if I was one of those employees, would I be looking for another job right now? No. But would I if another offer came up in the future, would I think about it? Yeah. And that's how businesses fall apart. That's how you lose quality employees by just, treating them with no regard or by thinking you can just replace them. You can't. You can't replace quality people. You think you can replace them with bodies, but there's a reason why you should value a quality employee because good help is hard to find in any walk of life. I don't care if it's ShopRite or a major multi-billion dollar, million dollar corporation. It doesn't matter. So I'm not going to give the Sixers any credit for reversing course. They shouldn't have thought of that in the first place. Shouldn't even been a thought. So they dealt with their embarrassment, and finally, social media does some good. Finally, the complaint because they got destroyed on social media, Twitter. I mean, they got just lambasted on on Twitter and the various different other platforms. And good, they should have. Um, if you're Adam Silver, you just gotta be shaking your head. I mean, if I'm Adam Silver, I'm thinking to myself, can you give me a call before you even think about doing something like that, or even, that thought even crosses your mind? At least don't go public with it. Like if that's something that you think of and then it never gets out, that's one thing. But the idea that this thing went public and even for a couple hours or however long it was between the time they thought about it and changed their mind, it was too long. So they reversed course as they should have, and the those employees are going to get paid as they should. Um, I'm not going to do a lot on the coronavirus. There's not too many things that I can sit up here and tell you that you probably already don't know. There's no stimulus package that has not been figured, has not been signed by or agreed upon with the in Congress. Um, you have a president who wants to open up things and have the government running and businesses running things by Easter. Um, Public health people and doctors are thinking otherwise with that, and I feel like I know how this is going to play out. But I just want to do a lot of I'm going to do a lot of sports on this particular podcast. I don't want to just. I mean, it's bad enough that people have to worry about their next paycheck or a mortgage or rent. So kind of going to stand clear of that tonight. But it is not getting any better as far as in terms of understanding understanding this virus. Casualties are going up. So just keep your head up, be safe, and listen to the doctors. Do not listen to the government. Listen to the doctors. They know what they're talking about. Public health people know what they're talking about. The infectious experts know what they're talking about. But like I said, we're not going to do a lot of that tonight. If any at all on this podcast, I want to talk about, want to get into, um, and also one other thing before I get into Brady and Manning. Cam Newton, of course, as expected, was released by the Carolina Panthers after 9 years, Super Bowl appearance, an MVP. 68. He was 68 and 55 as a starter with the Panthers, 3-4 in the playoffs, and we'll see what he can do in the next this second part of his career. He's 30 years old. He's coming off a litany of injuries. I still think a healthy Cam Newton can be an effective quarterback, can be a guy with the right with a great situation, culture, structure, can can lead the team to the playoffs and maybe even beyond. Um, Now, a lot will have to happen for him to get back to the Super Bowl, but I still think Cam Newton has some gas left in the tank if he's healthy. Again, if I'm the New England Patriots, he would be number one on my list to be if he has a clean bill of health. I think he would be. I think he would flourish with Belichick and that culture, and them with the defense. I think he's a perfect fit. I think. And think about Cam Newton. Of course, you have to tailor your offense towards his skill set. Who in the NFL tailors who in the NFL is better at adapting and evolving than the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick? They change their game plan weekly. So I don't think that they don't have a system. Like they are, they morph into whatever the opponent or the game or the game calls for. So I think he's going to. I keep thinking it. I think he's going to end up being a Patriot. I think he has a lot to prove. He will have a lot to prove. He'll have a chip on his shoulder. A lot of people are writing his career off. A lot of people think he's finished. Um, I think when you look at Cam Newton up until this point in his career, he was a franchise quarterback when healthy. He was a franchise quarterback. Now, only had 3 winning seasons, but you know, I never thought he was with a competent offensive um, coach. Rivera was a defensive guy, and I would love to see him with a somebody who offensively really could take his game to another level. And I think that again, I think there's some gas left in the tank. There's no reason at 30 years old why this guy can't be a playoff quarterback. A team that again, I don't know if he's a quick team. I don't think that he's at a. I don't think that he's at a point or will ever get to a point to where he can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But a guy that can get you to the playoffs and win a game in the playoffs, get you to a divisional round. Yeah, I think he can be that guy. I think he still has that in him. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, I expect that he will be picked up. He's going to start somewhere next year. He's going to start somewhere next year. Now, Jameis Winston probably won't. I think James Winston is going to completely rebuild his reputation in his career. 30 interceptions is like a scarlet letter in the NFL. I mean and I think James has talent a lot. And I'm a Florida State fan. I watch him at Florida State. He has a lot of talent. You cannot deny, and I'm not someone who's big on yards, but you can't deny the amount of you can't deny his ability. Like Winston has ability, but he's going to have to rebuild his reputation in order to get a starting spot and in order to get another starting job. And again, these guys, listen, you got some quarterbacks that are headed out in the next couple of years. Guys always get hurt at that position. We see how many quarterbacks were injured last year. Um, he'll get another shot. He's going to pay some dues. He's going to be a backup he's going to back up a veteran team, but he will definitely, without question, get another shot because it's just not that many not that many great quarterbacks in this league. You know, once you get past the big guns in the NFL. So you got that going on. You, as far as the some other news of note, NFL news of note, you had Quentin Dunbar, and this is why Washington has been one of the worst NFL franchises over the last 20 years. They trade Quentin Dunbar, who, by the way, was ranked number 2 as the second best cornerback by Pro Football Focus, which I trust, by the way. I trust Pro Football Focus as a means in terms of grading players and teams and what have you. They had him number two behind Richard Sherman. He said even ahead of Gilmore, ahead of a number of cornerbacks this year. Now he wasn't going to make All Pro or even the Pro Bowl playing, with Washington, but he played great this year. And Washington, for whatever reason, trades him for a fifth round pick. They cut Josh Norman, okay, got rid of a bunch of other guys in secondary, Monte Nicholson, and now they get Kendall Fuller back, which they never should have traded to begin with. So you settle at that. Fuller still, to me, still a top slot corner. Um, Again, to get rid of a guy for a fifth round pick, I don't care how disgruntled he was. I really don't. I don't like if I'm Ron Rivera and I'm that organization, I'm doing whatever I have to do to try to keep him on the team. If he becomes that disgruntled, then you gotta give me a second. You have to give me a second round pick. There are not that many great cornerbacks. There are not that many good cornerbacks. I'm not saying he's great. But there are not that many quality cornerbacks in the NFL right now. There's just not. And a guy who is relatively young, still 27, 28, on a good contract, is only going to get paid, is only going to make $3 million this year. Either, if he goes out there, and I know he only had 1 year left on his contract. If he goes out there and, has a great year, you can franchise him. Okay. If he goes out there and he stinks up the joint, then get rid of him for nothing. Just get rid of him. Just let him walk. You might as well have got nothing for him. A fifth round pick for a starting quarterback who was rated number two by Pro Football Focus. And that's why Washington, that's why they are who they are. He will go to Seattle, and you can mark my word, he will be an All-Pro in Seattle next year. He will be an All-Pro. He'll be first or second team All-Pro next year with Seattle. It's a great culture for him. Pete Carroll, as we know, coaches is a great secondary coach with cornerbacks. He will be a top player with Seattle. I promise you. I promise you. So Tom Brady has a press conference for Tampa Bay today. It is Peyton Manning's 44th birthday. And they got me to thinking they're running a bunch of stuff. On Sunday, they ran some stuff for Tom Brady, marathon for Tom Brady for like 6 or 7 hours. They're doing the same thing on ESPN2 for Peyton Manning. It got me to thinking about the rivalry between those two and about which I think kind of goes under appreciated as far as because it literally was one of the great rivalries in all the sports. It really was. You think about, I could put it in terms of individual rivalries. I'll put it up there with Bird, Magic, Russell, Chamberlain. I will put it up there. It's the best. It's the best in terms of quarterback rivalries. There's no other quarterback rivalry that comes close to it in the NFL. And I'm not sitting up here and saying that. I'm not gonna make an argument that Manning is better than Brady, but the gap is not as big as you may think it is. And Brady has the 6 Super Bowls. Manning has 2. But there wasn't, over the course of their respective careers, I would say from like 2000, let's say '02 to 2010, right? Now, Manning came in the league 2 years before Brady. He was class of '98. Brady came in 2000. Brady didn't establish himself as a top quarterback until I would say 2002. Even that season when he was 2001, came out of nowhere. Bledsoe gets hurt. They win the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl with their defense. Okay, and Brady not making mistakes. And he made a couple plays here and there, but that was a defensive. They held the Rams to 17 points. So that was about Bill Belichick's defense. He shouldn't have won MVP of that Super Bowl. It should have been Ty Law. And I would say Brady came of age in 2002, that particular season, had a strong season. And Manning, I would say 2000, but let's say for argument's sake, from 2002 to 2010, they were without question the two best quarterbacks in football. And then it's not even a question. Now, I stopped at 2010 because I think at 2011 it became Aaron Rodgers' league as far as not only as the best quarterback. I thought Aaron Rodgers was the best player for about 5 years. That he was clearly the best player in football from 2011 on. Not one time, I would say from 2002 to 2010, did I feel like Brady was a better player than Peyton Manning. Now, you say, well, why, besides the Super Bowls, why is Peyton Manning, why is Brady considered to be better than Manning? And here's where it kind of gets, here's where I have to kind of back Manning. You had 20 years of Belichick versus, say, 6 years of Tony Dungy. So, the Belichick, you got to take that into consideration. 6 years of Tony Dungy, 3 years of, he was with Denver for 2012 to 2015. 4 years of Gary Kubiak. Okay. So, and Gary, I mean, listen, I know Gary Kubiak won the Super Bowl 2015. So did Barry Switzer has the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean you're a great coach. Gary Kubiak was an okay coach. Belichick is Belichick. Dungy is a very good coach. He was a great coach. So 20 years of Belichick versus 6 years of Tony Dungy. Then you have a situation where, and this where the thing that separates Brady in terms of um, why people put him ahead of Manning is the postseason. Manning's postseason numbers not as good as his regular season numbers. His record in the postseason is one game over 500. We know what Brady has done in the postseason. Went to 9 Super Bowls. But regular season, there has not been a more consistent player in my book, in my eyes. There has not been a more consistent player down in and down out regular season than Peyton Manning. And not only during that time, but in the history of the NFL, regular season. Like I think that regular season, Peyton Manning was the most consistent player that I ever saw. I mean, the guy was a one man. He's a one man machine as far as offensive. He was not a quarterback. He's offensive coordinator. Versus Brady coming up, being a part of a system of a culture that was developed, with Kraft and with Belichick. And again, when Brady became better than Manning, Manning was done. So 2015, Manning has a horrible season. He was done. That was his last year. That was a Super Bowl year, and he was terrible that year. And Brady kept putting up numbers and eventually, won a couple more Super Bowls. But if I take the best of if I take them at their apex, at their peak, the best Tom Brady versus the best Peyton Manning, Manning's a better quarterback. Manning's better from that standpoint. Manning's better, and Manning had a career winning record against Brady in terms of playoffs. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Want to point to that. We took, the 5 MVPs, 7 times All Pro, first team, which is hard to make All Pro in the NFL. It's hard to make the All Pro team with so many positions, so much competition, especially at the quarterback position. You can have a great year and not be on the All Pro team, depending on what your team does. So he was 7 times he was All Pro, which is tied with Otto Graham for most all time. Again, I'm not telling you that if I'm ranking the quarterbacks all time, I'm putting Manning ahead of Tom Brady. What I'm telling you is much closer than what history will show. History is going to show a couple things. They're going to show six Super Bowls versus two, and they're also going to show how Manning ended his career versus the fact that Brady is going to be 43 years old, entering his 21st season. And as an example of what Manning, the last of what we saw Manning was like, damn, this dude, he really can't play no more. That was the last of what we saw Peyton Manning. But it's really, I mean, and I can compare it to this. The best comparison I can do as far as one guy who was probably more talented and who had all the numbers. And again, if you want to say Brady's, if you take Manning played 17 years, he played 16 years, and when you got to take out the season where he was where with the neck injury, so he played 16 years. If you take Manning's 16 years versus Brady's for 16 years, there's no comparison with their numbers. Now Brady exceeded Manning because he played longer. Like Brady's played 20 years, Manning played 16. So you do the math on that one. That's four. He played four more years. The best comparison I would do is Chamberlain and Russell. Russell has 11 championships. Chamberlain only has two. But Russell without question was the more talented, skilled player all around, especially offensively. But it was Russell. What put Russell over the top, and what put Brady over was taking Brady over the top is number one, similar to Brady, Russell better was better in the postseason. His performance in the postseason went up. Chamberlain's went down. Brady's performance in the postseason either went up or stayed at the same as regular season. Manning's went down in the postseason all around in the postseason during those 27 starts for whatever reason. And intangibles. That's where Brady, that's where Bill Russell destroyed Manning and Wilt Chamberlain. Intangibles. Not, coming up big when it counts the most. Uh, not throwing an interception, a key interception, not beating themselves. And again, this is where you have to view. This is also you have to look at culture as well. The Celtic culture, Red Auerbach, you got to give him all the credit in the world. Red Auerbach was probably the greatest general manager slash coach in the history of sports. Think about he picked the players and coached them. And even after he was retired, he drafted Len. He made trades to get Len Bias. Rest in peace to him. And of course had died of the cocaine overdose back in '86. That guy was going to be Len Bias. Len Bias was going to be a superstar in the NBA. Anybody that follows basketball, especially ACC basketball. Bill Russell kind of bounced around all over the place. Bill Russell played with not Bill Russell, excuse me, Wilt Chamberlain. Had multiple coaches. Bill Russell had one. Brady said up to this point has had one coach. One. So I think that again, it's a rivalry that I don't think that I mean now we'll see with Mahomes and Lamar Jackson that has the potential to be the next big one in the NFL. Both of them are young, 20. Both of them are 23 and under, and both of them has already experienced success with MVPs. Mahomes has a Super Bowl. Jackson needs to win a playoff game. But he looked like seemed like he's going to be around for the next at least 3 or 4 or 5 years until he has to develop into a pocket quarterback eventually. But I don't think you're ever going to see two quarterbacks on that level and where we get to see the majority of their primes going at it like that. I don't think you'll ever see that in the NFL. Kobe and LeBron never went head to head. They never went head to head in a playoff in a big moment. So that it gets lost in that you can't put them up there as far as great rivalries, individual rivalries in sports. In quarterback wise in the NFL again outside of Manning and Brady, I can't think of what was the last great quarterback rivalry besides those two. I mean, what Kelly Marino? Everybody knew Marino was better. Was a much better player than Kelly, and he was. Young Aikman had again yeah system versus great individual talent. And again, if I had a team, I gave it everything was equal, coaching, players. You asked me, take Brady or you take it Manning. But I probably would take Manning, to be honest with you. Again, that's not anti Brady. That's my respect for Bill Belichick. That's my respect for Bill Belichick. But again, this is not me arguing that Peyton Manning should be over Tom Brady in terms of greatest quarterback of all time. No. I think like I have Manning. Matter of fact, I have Brady. Brady's not number one. I have Montana, Brady, Elway. Those are my top three. I have Manning fourth. Have Manning behind Elway. So that those are my top four quarterbacks of all time. And with all apologies to some of my older listeners or viewers, in terms of the Johnny Unitas and Otto Grahams of the world, all due respect to them, those are my top four. But again, they ruled the sport for a decade, um, and I think Manning was to me again the most consistent player, game in and game out that I ever saw. Consistent player, like game in and game out. I really believe that. And I think Manning's the best regular season quarterback of all time. Um, I think Brady, I think Brady is the the best, and we're back here. NBA teams, and so I realize that the season is not over. I realize that the NBA is going to do everything in its power to finish the season and crown a champion. But the regular season is over. Like there's not going to be those last however many games that they had left, 15 to 20 or 15 to 18. Those games are not going to be played. So the regular season is over, and these awards are regular season awards. So MVP, no surprise, will be and should be the Greek Freak. LeBron was closing ground, but ultimately Milwaukee had the best record. And you cannot deny the fact that right now the Greek Freak is a better all-around player than LeBron James on both ends of the court. And the Greek Freak, I think, not only will be first team All NBA, He'll be first team all defense, and he is my defensive player of the year. So I think he'll be the defensive player of the year as well. As far as the MVP, as far as my top 5 MVP candidates, I have the Greek Freak, LeBron 2, Luka 3, Harden 4, and Siakam 5. Siakam's had a great year. And I cannot deny the best player on the team. That's 46 and 18. No one expected Toronto to be at that level. Rookie of the year is Ja Morant, though we know if you get, we know Zion is the best rookie, but I can't. Yeah, not that Zion. Zion had up until this point. Now Zion had a chance to catch Morant had they made the playoffs, but as we currently stand, Memphis is going to be in the playoffs. New Orleans is not, and Morant played considerably more games, so that's not even a question. So Morant wins the would get my rookie of the year. As far as the All NBA teams, first team first team was relatively easy. Uh, the Greek Freak, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Luca, and James Harden. Um, Anthony Davis has been spectacular this year. And he probably will finish runner up to the Greek Freak and Defensive Player of the Year. I know Harden has struggled, but he's still averaging 34 points a game, and he's still worthy of being first team. And Luca speaks for himself. Luca has been spectacular at about 20, 29, 9, and 8 for a Dallas team that didn't really have too much high expectations, and depending on whenever they start playing again, it's going to be could be dangerous in the playoffs or the tournament. In regards to the NBA, second team was tricky. I had Kawhi Leonard, Djokovic, not Novak Djokovic, the Djokovic, Siakam, Westbrook, and Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul and Westbrook. Chris Paul, no one. Leonard was easy. Uh, Jokic, Jokic was easy. Siakam, those three were easy for the second team. Westbrook has been spectacular since January. So why did I put Chris Paul over, say, Lillard or Ben Simmons? Again, Chris Paul is playing on a team that really did not have high expectations. He has been spectacular this year, especially in clutch situations. His leadership is about not, in terms of his pure numbers, is about impact to me. And those players that flourished around him, Gallinari, the guard, Schroeder, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and he deserves all the credit in the world for that. That was a tough situation. Basically, people are pointing fingers at you as being the reason why Houston did not advance past Golden State, which was not the case at all. It was James Harden's fault. But Chris Paul was the fall guy from that standpoint. And he's been dominant. He was great this year. He's great. Now that team had a ceiling. They wouldn't go and make it that far to playoffs, but that's not even the point. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we didn't think that team was even a playoff team. So that's why I had him second team. Third team, I had Lillard, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Tatum, and Embiid. Embiid almost did not make this list. I literally forgot about Embiid. I'll be honest with you. I forgot all about Joel Embiid. But he was one of the 15 best players. He couldn't be left off his list, but I almost left him off. But he makes third team. Now, some guys that could have made it, that there are really only three. There are three guys that I could make a case for: Bradley Beal, Sabonis, Domantas Sabonis out of Indiana, and Chris Middleton. Those are three guys that you could make. Middleton, second best player on the team with the best record, is a very good defensive player. Offensively, he had a chance to be 50, 40, and 90. I think he was 54 and 90, 50, 40, and 90 before play got suspended. It was averaging about 21 points a game. Middleton's had a great year. He's had a great year. So you can make a case for him. Bradley Beal, it hurt because I watched Bradley Beal often being down in DMV. It hurt to leave Bradley Beal off the team. I'm a Bradley Beal fan. I wish he gets on a contender so people can really see that this guy is developing into one of the top two guards in the league. But the Wizards are where they are. They're out. They're not in the playoffs. Um, and the guard position, the guard position is tough. I was not gonna. I was not going to. There was no way because I thought he should have made it last year. There was no way that I was going to leave Ben Simmons off. Ben Simmons has been spectacular this year, all around defensively. His defense, he should be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year as well. I mean, that would be my top three: the Greek Freak, Anthony Davis, and Ben Simmons would be number 3. Ben Simmons absolutely better make first team All Defense. He absolutely deserves to make first team All Defense. Played great when Embiid was injured for the stretch, and really has really developed this year. Now again, I'm not going to. People worry about too much what Ben Simmons can't do as far as his jump shot instead of paying attention to what he can do, and that's pass, that's run your team, that's post up, that's defend 4 positions. Really, at times he can defend even 5 positions. He can do everything but shoot. So now again, he needs to get better at the free throw line. We all know that. Forget about the jump shot. He needs to be at least 75% at the free throw line, 75 to 80%. But I think Ben Simmons has played great this year, and he's definitely worthy of being third team All NBA. He's definitely been one of the top 15 players. I could not have 2 Celtics on there. If you're wondering where Kemba Walker is, Tatum's been their best player. So I was not taking 2 Celtics. So there you go with the All NBA teams. Sounds like Giannis will, based on a media vote, will be MVP for the second straight year, and he deserves it. He deserves it without question in my mind. So it was again the toughest positions I had was I would say keeping Bill off. That a lot of people are not going to like Siakam, but Siakam has played. Anybody that's watched Toronto know Siakam has been steady throughout the course of the season, and he's been their best player. And again, he will make one of those all defensive teams as well. But ultimately, I think that those will be your 15 players. I might not have got the order right. Like you might see Chris Paul you might see Lillard on a second team, or Chris Paul on a third team, or you might see Embiid on a second team, or Siakam on the third team. But I think those are your 15 guys as far as the All NBA players. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Thanks for joining me. I will see you next time very soon. We're coming up later on this week with a podcast. I'm out. Take it easy.